Commander Jake Morrison floated through the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Harmony, watching the pale blue dot of his home planet spin slowly below. The station orbited Luna, humanity's first step into the solar system beyond Earth. Jake had been assigned here for 3 years, and most days were quiet. Too quiet. "Commander, you need to see this," called Amy Rodriguez from the communications center. Her voice carried an urgency that made Jake push off the wall and glide quickly toward her station. "What is it, Amy?" Jake asked, settling into the chair beside her workstation. Amy's fingers danced across her control panel. "I picked up something strange about an hour ago. It's not from any of our satellites or ships. The signal is coming from outside the solar system." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Outside the solar system? Are you sure?" "Positive, sir. The signal traveled for years to reach us. It's weak, but it's definitely artificial. Someone or something sent this message." Lisa Barnes, the station's best pilot, drifted over from the navigation station. "Did you just say we got a message from aliens?" "That's what it looks like," Amy replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Danny Clark, the chief engineer, pulled himself along the handholds to join them. "This is impossible. We've been listening to space for decades and never heard anything like this." Jake studied the data scrolling across Amy's screen. The signal showed patterns that no natural phenomenon could create. "Can you decode it?" "I'm trying, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen. We need Dr. Nathan Cole from the linguistics department on Earth. He's the best we have at breaking unknown languages." Jake nodded. "Send the data to Earth immediately. Priority 1 transmission to Dr. Cole and Admiral Helen Brooks." While Amy worked on the transmission, Jake stared out at the stars. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. 2 days later, Dr. Cole's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth. "Commander Morrison, I've made progress on the signal. You're not going to believe this." Jake activated the main screen. In the command center, Dr. Cole's excited face appeared, his gray hair disheveled from hours of work. "The message is a distress call," Dr. Cole explained. "The beings who sent it call themselves the Velari. Their home world is under attack by something they call the Kethver." Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "What do they want from us?" Dr. Cole's expression grew serious. "They're asking for help. But here's the strange part. They refer to Earth as a death world and humans as Deathworlders. According to their message, most planets in the galaxy are peaceful places with gentle weather and calm environments. Earth is considered one of the most dangerous planets they know of." Danny laughed. "Dangerous? Earth is our home. It's just normal to us." "That's exactly their point," Dr. Cole continued. "They believe that only the strongest, most adaptable species could survive on a world like Earth. They're hoping that makes us strong enough to help them." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Dr. Cole, are you saying that aliens think we're tough because we come from a dangerous planet?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. In their message, they describe Earth's extreme weather, violent storms, dangerous radiation from the sun, earthquakes, volcanoes, and aggressive wildlife. To them, anyone who could evolve and thrive in such conditions must be incredibly resilient." Amy shook her head in amazement. "We always thought Earth was just a normal planet." "Not to them," Dr. Cole replied. "They see us as survivors from a world that would kill most other species." The communication channel switched to Admiral Brooks on Earth. Her stern face filled the screen. "Commander Morrison, I've been listening to Dr. Cole's briefing. I'm calling an emergency council meeting. We need to decide how to respond to this." Jake straightened in his chair. "Admiral, what are your initial thoughts?" "Honestly, I'm torn. This could be the most important moment in human history. First contact with an alien species. but they're asking us to get involved in a war we know nothing about. Lisa spoke up. Ma'am, if they're right about Earth being a death world, maybe we really are uniquely qualified to help them. Admiral Brooks nodded slowly. That's what worries me. If we're as tough as they think we are, we might be getting into something bigger than we can handle. Over the next week, debates raged on Earth. Politicians argued about the risks of contact with alien species. Scientists demanded the chance to study the Valari. Military leaders wanted to know more about the Kethvar threat. Richard Hayes spoke against any response. We don't know anything about these aliens or their war. We could be walking into a trap. But Admiral Brooks had made up her mind. She assembled a team for humanity's first interstellar mission. Captain Ryan Phillips would command the starship. Liberty, humanity's fastest and most advanced vessel. Dr. Kate Miller, an expert in biology, would study alien life forms. Sergeant Tim Johnson would lead a squad of Marines for protection. Alex Turner, Earth's best diplomat, would handle negotiations with the VLARI. As the Liberty prepared for departure, Jake received orders to follow in a second ship with additional supplies and personnel. The mission was simple in concept, but terrifying in reality. Travel to an alien world, make contact with an unknown species, and somehow help them fight a war against an enemy humanity had never seen. The night before departure, Jake stood again on the observation deck, looking at Earth. Tomorrow, humans would leave their solar system for the first time, not as explorers or scientists, but as soldiers answering a call for help from across the galaxy. Amy joined him at the window. Are you scared, Commander? Jake considered the question. Terrified, but also excited. We're about to find out if the aliens are right about us. Are we really as tough as they think we are? I guess we'll find out, Amy replied. As Earth turned below them, Jake wondered what they would find among the stars. Would humanity prove worthy of the trust placed in them by desperate aliens? Or would they discover that being from a death world wasn't enough to save a dying civilization? The answers waited in the darkness between the stars. And tomorrow, humanity would begin the journey to find them. The Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velros system. Captain Ryan Phillips gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered from the transition. Through the main screen, he could see a yellow star much like Earth's. Sun, but something was wrong with the space around it. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system, reported Lisa Barnes from the pilot station. There are explosions happening near the fourth planet. Dr. Kate Miller looked up from her science console, her face pale. Those aren't natural explosions. Someone is bombing that planet. Captain Phillips felt his stomach tighten. That must be Velros Prime. We're seeing the war the Velari told us about. The Liberty moved deeper into the system, and the destruction became clearer. Huge metal ships, dark and angular, surrounded the blue-green planet. They fired bright energy beams down at the surface, while smaller ships swarmed around them like angry insects. Captain, I'm getting a transmission, announced Amy Rodriguez. It's weak, but it's using the same language patterns Dr. Cole taught us. Put it on screen, Phillips ordered. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp. The being looking back at them was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Its eyes were large and completely blue, and when it moved, light reflected off its body like sunlight on water. Unknown vessel. This is HFY of the Valari Science Council, the alien said in a voice like wind chimes. Are you the beings? From the death world called Earth? Captain Phillips stood up slowly. This was it. First contact with an alien species. This is Captain Ryan Phillips of the Earthship Liberty. We received your distress call and came to help. HFY's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. You actually came. We hoped, but we did not dare to believe. The Deathworlders have answered our call. Dr. Miller stepped forward. We're here to help however we can. Can you tell us what's happening? The Kethfer arrived 6 months ago, SciFi explained, its voice filled with sadness. They are machines, not living beings like us. They consume everything. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. They turn it all into more machines. On the screen behind SciFi, explosions lit up what looked like a beautiful city made of crystal and flowing water. Captain Phillips could see the elegant spires collapsing under the bombardment. How many of your people are left? Asked Alex Turner, the diplomat. Perhaps 2 million, scattered in underground shelters. We once numbered in the billions. SciFi's light dimmed. The Kethfer do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They simply destroy and consume. Sergeant Tim Johnson stepped into view of the camera. What about other species? Doesn't anyone else in the galaxy fight these machines? SciFi looked confused by the question. Fight? No, Sergeant Johnson. When the Kethfer come, civilized species flee to other worlds. Fighting them is considered impossible. That is why we called for the Deathworlders. Dr. Miller frowned. But surely someone must have tried to stop them before. You do not understand, SciFi said gently. Most species in the galaxy evolved on peaceful worlds. Our planets have gentle weather, calm seas, and stable ground. We learn to avoid conflict, not seek it. The idea of deliberately fighting such a powerful enemy is unthinkable to us. Captain Phillips exchanged glances with his crew. SciFi, you said most species evolved on peaceful worlds. What makes Earth different? The alien's form seemed to shiver. Your world terrifies us, Captain Phillips. We have studied the data you sent with your response. Earth has violent storms that could destroy our cities. Your planet shakes and tears itself apart with earthquakes. You have mountains that spit fire and poison. Your sun bathes your world in radiation that would kill most species. Lisa Barnes laughed, but not unkindly. That's just weather to us. We've learned to deal with all of that. Exactly, SciFi said, its voice filled with wonder. Your species did not just survive such conditions. You thrived in them. You built civilizations despite constant danger. This makes you unique in the galaxy. Dr. Miller was taking notes frantically. So other planets don't have severe weather or natural disasters? Nothing like Earth. My homeworld has seasons that change slowly and gently. Our worst storms would seem like a light breeze to you. We have never experienced earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. When we first learned about Earth, many of our scientists believed no intelligent life could evolve there. Sergeant Johnson scratched his head. If that's true, how do other species handle problems or threats? We avoid them, SciFi replied simply. If a danger arises, we find ways around it or we leave. Direct confrontation is not in our nature. But the Kethfer cannot be avoided. They follow us wherever we go. Captain Phillips was beginning to understand. So when you sent that distress call, you weren't looking for another peaceful species to help you negotiate. No, Captain. We were hoping to find someone strong enough and adaptable enough to do what we cannot. We hoped the harsh conditions of your death world had created a species capable of fighting the impossible fight. The ship shook as a Kethfer patrol passed nearby. Through the screen, they could see the machine ships were enormous, covered in weapons and armor that gleamed with an evil light. SciFi, we need to understand what we're facing, said Alex Turner. Tell us about the Kethfer. How do they fight? What are their weaknesses? They have no weaknesses that we know of, the alien replied sadly. Their ships are stronger than anything we have ever built. Their weapons can destroy our vessels with single shots. They repair themselves and grow stronger by consuming the materials of destroyed planets. Dr. Miller studied the tactical display. But they're machines, right? Machines can be broken. Perhaps, Dr. Miller, but no species has ever managed to damage them significantly. The Kethver have conquered 17 civilizations in the past century. Hundreds more have fled their home worlds rather than face them. Captain Phillips felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. An entire alien civilization was counting on humanity to accomplish something no other species had managed. All because Earth was a dangerous place to live. HFY, we need to see your planet up close. Can you guide us to a safe landing site? The crystalline being's form brightened slightly. I will send you coordinates for our main shelter. But Captain Phillips, you should know that nothing about this war is safe. The moment you enter our atmosphere, the Kethver will know you are here. Let them know, Sergeant Johnson said firmly. It's time they met some real Deathworlders. As the Liberty moved toward the besieged planet, Captain Phillips wondered if his species was really as tough as the aliens believed. Soon, they would. Find out if being from Earth was enough to make a difference in a war that had already destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. The Liberty's engines roared as Captain Phillips guided the ship through Velrose Prime's atmosphere. Energy blasts from Kethver ships lit up the sky around them like deadly fireworks. Dr. Kate Miller watched her instruments spike with radiation, levels that would kill most alien species. Captain, the radiation down here is intense, she reported. No wonder the Velari are hiding underground. How intense? Asked Sergeant Tim Johnson, checking his weapons. About the same as standing outside during a solar storm on Earth. Dangerous. For long exposure, but nothing we can't handle with basic protection. HFY's voice crackled through the communication system. Captain Phillips, how are your people surviving these conditions? Our own kind cannot remain on the surface for more than minutes without heavy shielding. Lisa Barnes laughed as she piloted through another explosion. This is like flying through a thunderstorm back home. Bumpy, but nothing we haven't done before. They landed near a crystal formation that rose from the ground like a frozen waterfall. As the human team stepped outside, they found HFY waiting with several other Velari. The aliens wore thick, bulky suits that covered their crystalline bodies completely. Welcome to what remains of our world, HFY said sadly. Please, follow me to the underground shelter. The surface is too dangerous. Sergeant Johnson looked. Around at the damaged landscape, craters dotted the ground where Kethver weapons had struck. Strange metal debris was scattered everywhere. But what caught his attention was how his team moved easily across the rough terrain, while the Velari struggled in their heavy suits. HFY, how long have your people been fighting wars? He asked. The alien paused. Fighting wars? We do not fight wars, Sergeant. When conflicts arise, we negotiate or relocate. The concept of organized violence is foreign to us. Dr. Miller knelt to examine some of the metal debris. This is incredibly advanced technology. The Kethver must be highly intelligent machines. They are, confirmed another Velari named Mordin, who appeared to be their engineer. Each Kethver unit can process information faster than our greatest computers. They learn from every encounter and adapt their strategies. Captain Phillips studied the massive Kethver ships hovering in the distance. If they're so smart, how do they fight? What are their tactics? They attack in precise formations, HFY explained. They calculate the optimal approach for maximum efficiency. They never waste energy or resources. Everything they do follows perfect mathematical logic. That's their weakness, said Alex Turner suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the diplomat. How can perfect logic be a weakness? Asked more single quotes Din.Alex. Smiled. Because humans don't always act logically. We do things that don't make mathematical sense. We take risks that no computer would calculate as worthwhile. Sergeant Johnson nodded. Back on Earth, our best military victories came from doing the unexpected. The enemy could plan for logical moves, but they couldn't plan for crazy ones. They entered the underground shelter, a vast space carved from crystal and stone. Thousands of Velari filled the chambers, their forms glowing softly in the dim light. When they saw the humans walking without protective suits, a whisper of amazement spread through the crowd. "How are they breathing our air?" one Velari asked. "Their skin is not burning from the radiation?" asked another. Dr. Miller checked her. "Readings. The atmosphere here is actually quite comfortable. A little high on carbon dioxide, but nothing unusual. The radiation levels are manageable." HFY looked stunned. "Comfortable?" "Captain Phillips, this shelter was designed to protect us from conditions that would kill most galactic species in minutes. Yet you walk through them as if they were normal." "They are normal to us," Captain Phillips replied. "Earth has dozens of environments more hostile than this. We have deserts where the air burns your lungs, oceans that would crush you with pressure, and mountains where there's barely enough oxygen to breathe." Morden approached Danny Clark, who was examining their technology. "Engineer Clark, may I ask you something? How do humans solve problems when there is no obvious solution?" Danny looked up from the alien computer he was studying. "We try things. If one approach doesn't work, we try something else. We keep trying until something works. But what if the calculations show that success is impossible?" Danny grinned. "Then we ignore the calculations and try anyway. Sometimes impossible just means nobody's figured out how to do it yet." Over the next few days, the humans explored the Velari situation. They learned that 17 different species had already fallen to the Kethvar. Hundreds more had abandoned their homeworlds and were hiding on distant planets. "What happens when the Kethvar find those hidden colonies?" Sergeant Johnson asked. "They will eventually," SciFi admitted. "The machines are methodical. They search every system, scan every planet. There is nowhere in the galaxy to hide forever." Dr. Miller was studying the Kethvar attack patterns when she made a disturbing discovery. "Captain, I think I understand why no one has been able to stop them. Look at this data." She showed them recordings of previous Kethvar conquests. In every case, the defending species had tried to protect themselves with shields and defensive positions. They had evacuated civilians and retreated to fortified locations. They had never attacked the Kethvar directly. "They're fighting defensively," Captain Phillips realized. "Every species just tries to survive the attack, not stop it." "Of course," said SciFi. "Direct assault against a superior force would be illogical. The mathematical probability of success would be essentially zero." Sergeant Johnson looked at his Marines, Corporal Ben Watson, Private Lucy Chun, and Private Mike Santos. They were checking their weapons and studying maps of Kethvar positions. "What if we don't care about the mathematics?" he asked. The Velari looked confused. "What do you mean? What if we attack them directly? Hit their command ships instead of hiding from them?" The crystal beings seemed to shimmer with shock. "Sergeant Johnson, that would be suicide. No species has ever successfully assaulted Kethvar vessel." "No species from a peaceful world," corrected Captain Phillips. "But we're not from a peaceful world. We're from a death world where everything tries to kill you. We learn to fight back." SciFi's form dimmed. "Captain, even if your species is more aggressive than others, the Kethvar have advantages you cannot overcome. Their ships are heavily armored, their weapons are devastating, and they outnumber you thousands to one." Dr. Miller looked up from her analysis. "Maybe that's exactly what we need. They've conquered 17 civilizations using the same methods because every species responds the same way. They've never faced an enemy that attacks when retreat would be logical." Alex Turner nodded. "If their intelligence is based on mathematical logic, they might not be programmed to handle opponents who ignore mathematics. "This is madness," Mordin said quietly. "You are talking about deliberately flying into certain death." Sergeant Johnson checked his rifle. Death isn't certain until it happens. And sometimes, when you're facing impossible odds, the only way to win is to do something so crazy that nobody sees it coming. Captain Phillips looked around at his team and at the Velari. "Zephi, can your people provide us with detailed information about the Kethver ships? Weapons, armor, power sources, anything that might help?" "Yes, but Captain Phillips, I must." Ask ... Are you seriously considering a direct assault?" "I'm considering it," Phillips replied, "because someone needs to try something different. Your people called us because we're from a death world. Well, this is how Deathworlders solve problems. We attack them head on." As the human team began planning their impossible assault, word spread through the shelter. The Deathworlders were going to do what no species in galactic history had ever attempted. They were going to fight the Kethver as if they could actually win. The human fleet moved through space like hunters stalking their prey. Captain Ryan Phillips commanded the Liberty, while Captain Tony Garcia led the Defiance, and Captain Rebecca Jones controlled the Resolute. Behind them came Commander Jake Morrison's supply ship Harmony, loaded with Marines and equipment. "All ships, this is Captain Phillips," he announced over the communication channel. "Remember, we're doing something no species has ever tried before. The Kethver won't expect a direct assault." Lisa Barnes checked her pilot controls. "Captain, I'm reading 17 Kethva command ships in a defensive formation around the planet. Each one is 3 times the size of our largest vessel." "Doctor." Kate Miller studied her scanners. "Their armor is incredible. Energy readings show power levels that dwarf anything we've ever built. No wonder other species consider them unbeatable." "Unbeatable isn't the same as invincible," said Sergeant Tim Johnson, suited up in combat armor. "Everything has a weak point. We just need to find it." The Kethver ships detected the approaching human fleet and began moving into attack formation. Their movements were precise and calculated, like pieces on a chessboard arranging for maximum efficiency. "They're forming a standard defensive pattern," observed Alex Turner. "According to Velari records, this is exactly how they've destroyed every other fleet that tried to approach them." Captain Phillips smiled grimly. "Good. Let them use their standard tactics. We're not going to give them a standard fight." The first Kethver energy blast lit up space around the Liberty. The being was so powerful that it would have vaporized any normal ship. But Lisa Barnes threw the Liberty into a diving spiral that no sane pilot would attempt near a planet's gravity well. "Warning, structural stress at 90%, announced the ship's computer. "Ignore it," Lisa called back, spinning the ship through a debris field that the Kethver had created from destroyed Velari vessels. "I've flown through worse storms on Earth." The Kethver ships tried to track the wildly maneuvering human vessels, but their targeting systems couldn't keep up. They were designed to fight enemies who moved in predictable patterns, not ships that threw themselves through dangerous maneuvers with no regard for safety. "All ships, execute Plan Alpha," ordered Captain Phillips. The human fleet split apart in 3 directions. Captain Garcia dove toward the planet's surface, using the atmosphere to mask his ship's energy signature. Captain Jones climbed toward the Kethver formation from above, while Captain Phillips attacked head-on. The machines responded by splitting their own forces, but they made a crucial mistake. They divided their firepower equally among the 3 threats, following mathematical logic that said each target deserved equal attention. "They're thinking like computers," Danny Clark observed from his engineering station. "They can't understand that humans don't always act rationally." Lieutenant Carl Davis led his Marines to the transport bay. "Sergeant Johnson, are you ready for this insane plan of yours?" Sergeant Johnson checked his rifle and smiled. ready as anyone can be for boarding a machine ship in the middle of space combat. The Liberty shook as Kethver weapons struck its shields. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship, but the human crew worked calmly through the chaos. They had trained for impossible situations, because Earth had taught them that impossible situations happened regularly. "Lisa, get us close to that." "Command ship," Captain Phillips ordered. "Define close, Captain." "Close enough for the Marines to board it." Lisa Barnes laughed, a sound that would have terrified any sane species. "You want me to ram a ship 1,000 times our size so our people can climb aboard while we're being shot at?" "That's exactly what I want. This is the craziest thing I've ever done," Lisa said, then pushed the Liberty into a collision course with the nearest Kethver vessel. "And I love it." The machine ship's automated defenses tried to stop the approaching human vessel, but they couldn't adapt fast enough to Lisa's unpredictable flight path. She flew through weapon fire that should have been impossible to avoid, using techniques she had learned flying through Earth's worst storms. "Transport Bay, this is the bridge," Captain Phillips announced. 30 seconds to contact." Sergeant Johnson's team prepared for boarding. Corporal Ben Watson carried breaching charges. Private Lucy Chun had the portable scanners Dr. Miller had modified to detect machine weaknesses. Private Mike Santos carried enough ammunition to fight a small war. The Liberty slammed against the Kethver ship's hull with an impact that would have destroyed any other vessel. Human engineering, built to survive Earth's hostile environment, held together through forces that should have been fatal. "Go, go, go," shouted Sergeant Johnson. The Marines cut through the machine, ship's armor with plasma torches, and poured into the vessel's interior. The Kethver had never been boarded before. Their defenses were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not soldiers with rifles and explosives. Inside the ship, the Marines found themselves in a maze of mechanical corridors filled with humming machinery. The air was toxic to most species, but their Earth-designed equipment filtered out the poisons easily. "Johnson to Liberty," the sergeant reported. "We're inside. This place is like a giant computer. Everything is connected to everything else." Dr. Miller's voice came through his communicator. "Look for the central processing core. It should be heavily shielded and surrounded by the most important systems." Corporal Steve Adams, the team's demolitions expert, studied the ship's layout. "Sergeant, I'm reading massive energy flows heading toward the center of the ship. That's got to be their brain." Private Maria Gonzalez, their technical specialist, plugged her scanner into one of the machine interfaces. "I'm getting data feeds from all over the ship. These machines are sharing information constantly. Can you disrupt it?" asked Sergeant Johnson. "Maybe, but we need to get to the core to do real damage." The team fought through the ship's interior, past mechanical defenders that had never encountered enemies who attacked from inside. The Kethver machines were powerful, but they were designed for space combat, not close quarters fighting with determined soldiers. "Contact front," yelled Private Chun as machine defenders rolled toward them on metal treads. The Marines took cover behind machinery and returned fire. Their bullets and energy weapons tore through systems that had never been designed to take damage from inside. "The ship, keep moving," Sergeant Johnson ordered. "We need to reach that core before they adapt to our presence." They fought through corridor after corridor, each step taking them deeper into the machine ship's heart. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of systems failing as their sabotage spread through the vessel. "There!" shouted Corporal Adams, pointing. "Ahead, that's got to be it." Before them lay a massive chamber filled with a crystal structure that pulsed with blue light. Energy flowed through it, like blood through veins. This was the Kethver command ship's brain, a system that controlled everything. "Plant the charges," ordered Sergeant Johnson. "Let's show these machines what happens when they mess with a Deathworld species." As the demolition charges armed themselves, The Kethvar finally began to understand what they were facing. For the first time in their existence, they were fighting an enemy that didn't retreat when the odds were impossible. They were fighting humans who had learned on Earth that sometimes the only way to survive was to attack the thing trying to kill you. The charges exploded, and the Kethvar command ship went dark. Across the battle, the machine fleet suddenly moved less precisely, less efficiently. They had lost their central coordination, and for the first time, they were vulnerable. The explosion aboard the Kethvar command ship sent shockwaves through the entire machine fleet. Without their central coordination, the once perfect formations began to break apart. Ships that had moved like clockwork now drifted confused and disorganized. All human vessels. This is Captain Phillips, came the transmission across the fleet. The primary target is down. Press the attack while they're confused. Captain Tony Garcia brought the Defiance around in a tight arc, firing at the disabled Kethvar ships. I can't believe it worked. They're actually vulnerable now. Don't celebrate yet, warned Captain Rebecca Jones from the Resolute. I'm reading backup systems coming online. They're trying to restore coordination. But it was too late for the machines. The human fleet had done something impossible. They had proven that the Kethvar could be defeated, and word of the victory was already spreading across the galaxy. On the surface of Vulros Prime, HFY watched the battle through long-range sensors. The crystalline being's form was brighter than it had been in months. Around the underground shelter, thousands of Velari pressed close to see the impossible sight. They did it, HFY whispered. The Deathworlders actually attacked the Kethvar and won. Morden could barely believe the readings. Their tactics made no mathematical sense. They should have been destroyed in the first minutes of combat. That's exactly why they succeeded, said Dr. Kate Miller, who had remained on the planet to coordinate with the Velari. The machines were programmed to fight logical enemies. They couldn't adapt fast enough to opponents who ignored logic. As the last Kethvar ships were destroyed or fled the system, Commander Jake Morrison's ship Harmony landed near the Velari shelter. The Marines who had boarded the machine ship were heroes now, but they acted like they had simply done their jobs. Sergeant Johnson, how did you know the boarding attack would work? Asked Alex Turner. The sergeant shrugged. I didn't know. But on Earth, when something big is trying to kill you, sometimes the only choice is to get close enough to hurt it. Over the following weeks, the victory at Velros Prime became legendary across the galaxy. Species that had been hiding from the Kethvar for generations began to emerge from their refuges. The impossible had happened. The machines could be beaten. Ambassador Alex Turner found himself busier than he had ever imagined. Representatives from dozens of species requested meetings with the humans. They all wanted to know the same thing. Would the Deathworlders help them reclaim their lost worlds? Captain Phillips were receiving communication requests from over 40 different species, Turner reported. They're all asking for military assistance against remaining Kethvar forces. Captain Phillips looked tired but determined. What's our status, Dr. Miller? According to galactic databases, there are still 6 major Kethvar fleets operating in different sectors. They've conquered systems across hundreds of light years. But after what happened here, they're being more cautious. HFY approached the human delegation. Captain Phillips, I must ask you something important. Your species has done what we thought impossible. You have given the galaxy hope. But what happens now? What do you mean? Phillips asked. The Kethvar will adapt. They will study what happened here and modify their tactics. The next battle will be harder for you. Dr. Miller nodded. HFY is right. We succeeded because they didn't expect our approach, but machines learn from their mistakes. Then we'll have to stay one step ahead of them, said Sergeant Johnson. Earth taught us to adapt faster than the things trying to kill us. a new transmission came through the communication system. Admiral Helen Brooks appeared on the main screen, speaking from Earth. "Captain Phillips, I've been monitoring the situation. The President has authorized the formation of the first Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We're sending 5 more ships and 1,000 Marines to help liberate the conquered systems." "Admiral, that's wonderful news, but we're going to need more than military support," Phillips replied. "Agreed. Dr. Nathan Cole is establishing the first interspecies research station. We need to understand how the Kethver think and fight. Meanwhile, Sergeant Johnson, you're being promoted to colonel. You'll be training alien forces in human combat tactics." Sergeant Johnson looked surprised. "Ma'am, I'm not sure other species can learn to fight like humans." "Maybe not exactly like humans," admitted Dr. Miller, "but they can learn to be more aggressive, more willing to take risks. That's what the galaxy needs." Over the next year, the transformation was remarkable. The human approach to warfare spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had never fought began to organize militaries. The Velari, with their crystalline technology, created weapons that could cut through Kethver armor. Other species contributed their own unique advantages. Engineer Danny Clark worked with alien scientists to develop new ship designs that could survive the kind of high-risk maneuvers humans preferred. "The key is building ships that can take damage and keep fighting," he explained to a group of fascinated alien engineers. "But why design for damage?" asked a reptilian scientist. "Wouldn't it be better to avoid damage entirely?" "You can't always avoid damage," Danny replied. "Sometimes you have to go through hell to get where you need to go. Earth taught us that." The liberation of the conquered worlds took 3 years. Each battle was different, as the Kethver tried new tactics and the combined galactic forces adapted in response. But the machines had a fundamental weakness they couldn't overcome. They were built for efficiency and logic, while their opponents now included species who had learned to value courage and sacrifice. The final battle took place at the Kethver home system, a dead sector of space filled with the consumed remains of dozens of planets. Admiral Phillips, now commander of the Galactic Defense Fleet, led a force of ships from 30 different species. "All vessels, this is Admiral Phillips," he announced as they approached the machine stronghold. 3 years ago, one species answered. A call for help. Today, we fight as one galaxy. Show them what we've learned. The battle was fierce, but the outcome was never in doubt. The galaxy had learned to fight like Deathworlders, and the machines couldn't adapt fast enough to counter the combined creativity of dozens of species working together. When the last Kethver facility was destroyed, Admiral Phillips received a message that would define humanity's future role in the galaxy. It came from the Galactic Council, representing over 300 species. "People of Earth," the message began, "you have taught us that sometimes the impossible is just another word for something nobody has tried yet. We ask you to stand with us as guardians of the galaxy. When the next impossible threat emerges, will you answer the call?" Admiral Phillips looked at his crew, then at the alien allies who had become family. "We'll be there," he replied. "That's what Deathworlders do." And across the galaxy, on worlds that had been freed from impossible odds, the message was heard and remembered. The Deathworlders had answered one call for help, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. No longer would civilizations face extinction alone, because somewhere among the stars, there was always someone willing to fight the impossible fight. History had indeed been made, not just by humanity's first steps into the galaxy, but by the lesson they taught. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from having the best technology or the safest world, but from refusing to give up when everything seems lost.